If Venezuela were to be attacked in any way, we would move to a stage of armed struggle planned and organized by all the people against the aggression, whether it is local.
They're calling it the prison of nightmares. Reports are flooding in from Venezuela about a so-called extreme fortress built to cage the most feared cartel bosses alive. But here's the twist. This isn't just about locking men behind bars. Whispers suggest it's a spectacle, a weapon, and maybe even a warning to the world. Imagine a place where steel towers cut into the sky, drones hover day and night, and families who once delivered food to their loved ones are suddenly shut out. No laughter, no visits, only silence. And in that silence, rumors are exploding. Did Venezuela really build a prison to crush cartels? Or is this something much darker? Some say it's a laboratory of control. Others call it a military base disguised as justice. And when you mix cartels, politics, and a $50 million bounty on a president's head, the drama writes itself. Fans online are already buzzing, accusing leaders of playing a dangerous game while innocent families are caught in the crossfire. Tonight, we're peeling back the curtain on the fortress making headlines. Brace yourselves, because if even half these reports are true, this isn't just a prison. It's a stage for the biggest showdown in Latin America. Ever since whispers about Venezuela's so-called extreme prison surfaced, one question has kept echoing across Latin America and beyond. Is this really about crushing the cartels, or is it a desperate display of political theater? Imagine a place where every corner is drenched in the cold eye of surveillance, where walls of concrete rise like a fortress, and guard towers bristle with weapons as if waiting for a war that could erupt at any moment. That's the picture state television painted. But those who claim to know what lies beyond those walls tell a story far darker. A story dripping with fear, silence, and betrayal. Reports started trickling in from families whose sons and brothers were suddenly transferred without warning. One man, trembling as he spoke off the record, claimed his younger brother had been swallowed by this new prison. His voice cracked when he said, "They don't let him stretch. They don't let him breathe. They only give him scraps of food. When we begged for a visit, soldiers just told us we didn't need to see him anymore." When his mother heard those words, she collapsed in tears on the kitchen floor, screaming that her son had been buried alive. Neighbors rushed in, some trying to comfort her, others filming on their phones. Because in this world, even grief becomes part of the spectacle. Online, the reaction was immediate. Fans were outraged, typing furiously that this wasn't justice, this was torment. Hashtags started trending, accusing the government of running a horror camp instead of a correctional facility. One post read, "They promised law and order, but all we see is pain and silence. Are these prisoners criminals? Or are they props in a much bigger play?" Then came the footage that lit the internet on fire. A blurry drone clip appeared, supposedly leaked by someone close to the site. In the short video, viewers could see an empty yard lined with razor wires stretching endlessly. In the background, a faint chilling sound bled through the static. It wasn't clear, but many swore they heard a voice crying out, "Don't bury us alive." The clip was only a few seconds long, but it was enough. Thousands reposted it, claiming it was proof that people inside were being broken down in ways too cruel to imagine. Officials quickly tried to shut the story down. One government spokesperson appeared on national TV, smiling stiffly as he declared, "There is no such recording, only audio distortion. Everything is fully under control." But the denial only fueled more suspicion. Families outside the prison gates whispered that they had been told to stop asking questions.
Nicolas Maduro, the U.S. has slapped a $50 million bounty on him, which is basically a Wild West wanted poster.
Questions. One mother revealed that a soldier leaned in close and warned her, "Keep talking, and you might find yourself on the inside with him." She said the words froze her blood, but she couldn't stay silent. Her son, she insisted, had rights, even if the world had already. The tension grew when local journalists tried to cover the story. One reporter described being shoved away from the gates by masked guards. "We only wanted to ask about living conditions," he explained. "But the moment we raised our cameras, they acted as if we were enemies of the state." That footage, of journalists being forced back at gunpoint, played again and again online. People were divided. Some argued the prison was necessary, that Venezuela had long been plagued by cartels who ran their own empires from behind bars. But others were horrified, saying the spectacle looked less like justice and more like a regime putting on a show to silence dissent. And then came the most explosive twist so far. An anonymous ex-guard, speaking with his face blurred on an independent channel, described the place not as a prison, but as a laboratory of control. He claimed prisoners were subjected to strict schedules where lights never turned off, where meals were deliberately cut down to weaken bodies, and where guards were trained not just to watch, but to humiliate. "This is not about stopping crime," he whispered, his voice shaking. "This is about breaking spirits. They want everyone to know. If you defy them, this is," his words spread. Reactions
Aquí no lograrán ni colonizar, ni esclavizar, ni a Venezuela, ni América del Sur, ni a...
poured in from across the region. Some fans of the government called him a liar, a traitor. Others treated his testimony like gospel truth. One popular comment read, "We used to think the cartels ran the prisons. Now it looks like the government learned from them and built something worse." The line was shared thousands of times, cementing itself as the chilling phrase of the moment. The story took another turn when leaked documents hinted that not all prisoners inside were hardened criminals. Buried in the files were names of activists, protesters, even a handful of people arrested during the last wave of demonstrations against the government. If true, that meant dissidents were being mixed with cartel bosses in the same cages, erased from the public eye under the excuse of fighting organized crime. A relative of one such activist spoke out, crying on live TV. "My brother went to a march. He carried a flag, not a gun. How did that make him equal to a cartel killer?" Her raw pain cut through the noise, forcing many to wonder if the line between justice and vengeance had vanished completely. Through all this, President Maduro kept speaking with fiery defiance. In one address, he stood tall and declared, "Venezuela will never bow, and we will defend peace through strength." To his supporters, these were words of sovereignty. To his critics, it was proof he had turned even prisons into weapons in a larger war of propaganda.
Week, I'm going to activate a special plan to ensure coverage with more than 4,500,000 militia members. Militias prepared, activated and armed, rifles and missiles for the rural force to defend the territory, the sovereignty.
The drama escalated when rumors circulated about a secret wing inside the facility, a place allegedly reserved for high-value figures. Some claimed it held top cartel leaders stripped of their power. Others believed it was meant for political prisoners too dangerous to leave in ordinary cells. A former inmate, who somehow managed to be released early, described the wing as a place of silence so absolute that men forgot their own voices. "After weeks," he said, "you begin to wonder if you're still human." Families waiting outside the prison gates became part of the spectacle themselves. Every day, women lined up, clutching bags of food, photos of their sons, or letters that would never reach their destination. Soldiers turned them away again and again. The scenes became emotional theater. A grandmother collapsing in the dirt, a young boy crying out for his father, a father pounding on the gates until his hands bled. Fans watching these clips online wrote that Venezuela had turned pain into policy, that suffering had become a staged performance. Yet the government pressed forward, showcasing the prison in glossy newsreels, parading it as proof that the state was finally taking back control from gangs. In one staged video, officials walked through the corridors, pointing proudly to locked steel doors and spotless hallways. They called it order. But the silence, the emptiness, the absence of voices struck many as haunting. One commentator wrote, "A prison without sound is not peace. It is the silence of fear." And still, new rumors kept surfacing. Whispers of secret punishments, of families threatened if they spoke too loudly, of prisoners collapsing from hunger while guards turned away. No one knew which stories were true, but the uncertainty itself became part of the drama. Because in Venezuela's new fortress, truth and rumor were locked together, and the world was left to wonder what was really unfolding behind those walls. Interview 738-754. The rumors didn't stop at the prison gates. If anything, they multiplied, spilling onto social media like wildfire. Every day, new voices appeared, each one more dramatic than the last. A woman claimed her husband disappeared into the prison after being caught at a protest. Not for violence, but for shouting slogans. Her trembling words were replayed across channels. He raised a banner. That was his crime. Now he sleeps beside cartel killers. The clip went viral and comments poured in from both sides. Some mocked her, saying criminals deserved no sympathy. Others were furious, insisting the prison had become a black hole swallowing anyone the regime wanted silenced. Tensions reached a boiling point when a group of families gathered outside the facility, holding pictures of their loved ones. Cameras caught the scene as soldiers in dark uniforms pushed them back, shouting orders. One young mother screamed, "You cannot erase us! You cannot erase them!" Her child clung to her leg, crying, while guards slammed the gates shut. That single image spread like fire. Fans online said it looked less like a correctional facility and more like a battlefield where citizens fought for scraps of truth. Then came the bombshell leak. A supposed former contractor for the prison surfaced on an underground broadcast. His voice shook as he described what he called discipline through disappearance. He claimed some prisoners were taken out of their cells at night, never to return. "They say they're moved," he whispered, "but no one ever sees them again." Was it true, or just another piece of theater designed to inflame outrage? Nobody knew. But the story dominated conversations, sparking heated debates at cafes, in taxis, and across television panels. The government tried to fight back. State TV aired polished footage showing prisoners lined up in spotless uniforms, standing silent as officials toured the grounds. Reporters asked scripted questions, and guards delivered rehearsed answers. One even laughed, saying, "Here, there is no chaos, only order." But the silence of the prisoners in the background told another story. Their eyes, downcast and hollow, gave fuel to critics who insisted the show was just that. A carefully choreographed act to mask cruelty. International voices started chiming in. One analyst on a foreign news channel declared, "This prison is not just about crime, it's about optics. Maduro is building walls not only around criminals, but around the narrative itself." His words hit hard. People began questioning whether the fortress was less a tool of justice and more a shield against foreign accusations. And then, a dramatic twist electrified the airwaves. A recording surfaced, allegedly from inside the prison.
Explicit. Trump deports 200 migrants to Venezuela. That's right, 200 more migrants have been shipped off since the last time we had a problem.
Prison. It captured muffled voices arguing. One voice cried, "We are starving. This is not justice." Another shouted, "They want us to die here." The audio was raw, jagged, almost painful to hear. Though its authenticity was impossible to confirm, the impact was immediate. Fans online reacted with disbelief and rage. One wrote, "If this is real, then Venezuela has built not a prison, but a tomb." Families rallied harder, desperate for answers. One father, his eyes bloodshot, stood outside the gates with a megaphone, shouting his son's name again.
Mensaje usted, no se deje envenenar más contra Venezuela. Lo envenenan todos los días con mentira.
That's Maduro. And again. "Answer me," he cried. "Just answer me once." Guards watched silently, their expressions hidden under helmets. The scene felt like something torn from a tragic play, with emotions running so high that even onlookers whispered about the cruelty of it all. Meanwhile, rumors swirled that high-profile cartel leaders were being kept in special underground cells, cut off completely from the outside world. Some claimed these leaders were stripped of everything: phones, food privileges, even sunlight. Others argued it was a lie, that these men still controlled empires from the shadows, trading favors with guards. The uncertainty made the story even more intoxicating. Nobody knew the truth, but everyone had an opinion. In the middle of all this chaos, President Maduro delivered another fiery speech. Standing in front of rows of soldiers, he declared, Venezuela will not bend. This fortress is proof that we will crush crime and defend peace. His supporters cheered, waving flags, chanting his name. But critics shook their heads, saying the speech sounded less like a promise of justice and more like a declaration of war against his own people. To make matters worse, international tension continued to climb. American commentators spoke about Venezuela as if it were a ticking bomb. One bold voice on a primetime show said, "This so-called prison is nothing more than a propaganda weapon. And mark my words, the world will pay the price for ignoring it." The statement set off another storm of speculation. Was the prison just a domestic issue? Or was it part of a much larger geopolitical chess game? Back on the ground, ordinary people shared chilling stories. One taxi driver claimed he dropped off a soldier near the facility who whispered, "If people knew what we did in there, they would burn the place down." Whether it was true or invented, the comments spread rapidly. Drama thrives on suggestion, and this suggestion was enough to ignite imaginations. Even among prisoners' families, divisions formed. Some begged others to stay quiet, terrified of retaliation. Others grew louder, saying silence was the regime's greatest weapon. Arguments broke out at vigils. One woman accused another of betraying their children by refusing to speak. "You are complicit," she screamed, while others tried to calm her. Emotions ran high, and fans watching the videos online said it felt like Venezuela's families were being ripped apart, piece by piece. And then, as if scripted by fate, another twist arrived. A group of exiles abroad released what they claimed were smuggled letters from inside the prison. In shaky handwriting, one note read, "They treat us like ghosts. We no longer exist." Another said, "They are mixing us with men we do not know, men who rule even here. Pray for us." The letters, whether authentic or not, fueled the fire of speculation. Social media exploded with hashtags demanding international intervention. But the government doubled down, insisting that all reports were lies crafted by enemies of the state. One spokesperson sneered at critics, saying, "Venezuela's prisons are models of order. Only criminals fear them." His cold words only deepened the divide. Fans online mocked him, calling the statement proof of arrogance. Others defended him, insisting the world was unfairly targeting Venezuela. As days turned into weeks, the narrative grew more tangled. What was supposed to be a fortress of justice had become the center of a reality-style saga, where truth and rumor blurred until they were indistinguishable. Every voice added fuel to the fire. Families in tears, guards leaking whispers, politicians delivering speeches, foreign analysts warning of disaster. Yet through it all, one chilling thought began to dominate conversations. If this prison was truly designed to break men, then what would happen when those men eventually got out? As whispers turned into roars, the prison story began to take on a life of its own. What once seemed like a local scandal now felt like the stage for a continental drama. Neighbors, politicians, even celebrities abroad started weighing in. One singer with millions of followers posted, "This isn't justice, this is theater," sparking a storm of arguments under her post. Fans clashed in the comments, some accusing her of disrespecting Venezuela's sovereignty, others praising her for daring to speak. The debate was no longer about one prison. It had become a referendum on power, cruelty, and survival itself. Interview 1305-1316 Inside Venezuela. Fear began to creep into daily conversations. People whispered that security forces were monitoring not just families of inmates, but anyone sharing critical posts online. A university student said in hushed tones, "My friend shared a meme about the prison." The next day, men came to his house. Now his account is gone, and so is he. Was it real, or just another rumor swirling through the atmosphere of paranoia? Nobody knew. But the fear was real enough to silence many voices. Meanwhile, foreign media amped up the spectacle. Slick documentaries popped up online with ominous music, drone footage of barbed wire and dramatic narration. One claimed the prison was designed not just to cage cartel bosses, but to rewrite Venezuela's image. The host's voice dripped with suspense. While the world sees cells, Maduro sees symbols. Fans ate it up, binge-watching like it was a true crime series. But then came an unexpected betrayal that shocked everyone. A mid-level official, someone who had often defended the government on TV, suddenly vanished. Days later, an audio file appeared on an independent channel, allegedly his voice. In it, he admitted that the prison was being used to hold political opponents, not just cartel members. They mixed them together on purpose, he confessed, to blur the line between criminal and dissenter. Once you're inside, the world forgets who you were. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. If true, it meant the fortress wasn't only a tool against organized crime. It was a weapon to erase opposition. Families clung to the leak like it was proof of what they had feared all along. One mother screamed outside the gates, you see, my son was no gangster, he was a protester." Her cries were broadcast live, sparking both sympathy and fury. Critics of the government seized on it as undeniable evidence of corruption, while loyalists called it a foreign-manufactured lie. Interview 1354A's The uproar grew. New reports painted an even darker picture. Insiders claimed the prison had a system of rewards and punishments. Those who obeyed got slightly better meals or a few minutes of sunlight. Those who resisted were allegedly dragged into solitary, where lights stayed on day and night until their minds cracked. One ex-guard, hiding his identity, described seeing a prisoner crawl on the floor, whispering nonsense after weeks in isolation. "That's the goal," he said quietly. "Not just to imprison bodies, but to erase identities." The drama intensified when families of missing protesters staged a march through Caracas. They carried banners with faces of their loved ones chanting, "They are not criminals, they are our children." Security forces descended quickly, clashing with the crowd. Video of mothers being shoved to the ground spread across social media. Fans watching from abroad described it as heartbreaking, while others called it the moment Venezuela showed its true face. The streets of Caracas became another theater, echoing the same themes of the prison: silence, defiance, and crushing power. International pressure mounted. Some foreign politicians demanded investigations, while others stayed silent, wary of disturbing oil deals. Commentators pointed out the hypocrisy. "They call Maduro a narco kingpin," one analyst said, "but they still buy his oil, and he still builds his prisons." The irony didn't go unnoticed, fueling even more anger among ordinary Venezuelans who felt abandoned by both their government and the world. Inside the prison, rumors grew stranger. One tale claimed cartel leaders were secretly bargaining with guards, offering money and influence in exchange for small privileges. Another claimed that informants had been planted among inmates, tasked with reporting on whispers of rebellion. Prisoners never knew who to trust. The paranoia fractured bonds, turning even allies into enemies. Then came the moment that no one expected. A smuggled video surfaced online, showing what looked like a fight inside the facility. Two men shouted at each other, one screaming, "You betrayed us!" before guards stormed in, dragging them away. The clip was grainy, the faces hard to identify, but the impact was explosive. Suddenly the world had a visual, a raw glimpse of chaos behind the walls. Fans described it as the crack in the facade, proof that the fortress of silence was not as controlled as the government claimed. Families seized on the video, demanding answers. A group of fathers gathered in front of the National Assembly, holding the clip on their phones, showing it to anyone who would listen. "If they are criminals, fine. But why do they vanish?" one man demanded. "Why can't we see them? Why can't we hear them?" His anger, raw and desperate, became another viral moment. Maduro responded with fury, lashing out at what he called foreign lies and manipulation. In a televised address, he declared, "Venezuela will never kneel. We will fight against criminals, terrorists, and imperialists alike." The crowd of supporters cheered wildly, but critics pointed out the careful wording, lumping criminals, dissidents, and foreign powers together as one enemy. To them, it was proof that the prison was never about justice. It was about power. As weeks passed, even those who had once cheered the crackdown began to feel uneasy. Whispers circulated that innocent men were trapped alongside hardened killers, that women searching for their sons were being harassed by soldiers, that voices were disappearing in the night. Fear gripped communities, but so did defiance. Graffiti began appearing on walls in Caracas. This is not justice. This is disappearance. The drama grew so intense that even children were caught in it. One heartbreaking video showed a little girl holding a sign outside the gates. "Bring my father back." Her voice cracked as she cried, "I just want him home." Fans online said it was the moment that broke them, the scene that revealed the true cost of the fortress. And yet, the spectacle didn't stop. Instead, it grew, feeding on itself, pulling in more voices, more emotions, more fury. Because in Venezuela's extreme prison, truth and lies had merged into a single unstoppable drama, and no one could predict what would come next. The storm around the prison only grew louder, and by now it wasn't just Venezuela's scandal. It had become a global obsession, a saga that people followed like the latest season of a hit drama. Every new rumor, every leaked clip, every desperate cry from a family turned into a headline. But behind the noise, one haunting question kept surfacing. If this fortress was built to prove strength, then why did it feel like the walls themselves were crumbling under the weight of secrecy? The biggest shock came when a former soldier stepped forward with claims that shook even hardened viewers. His face was hidden, his voice altered, but his words were sharp. "We were told this prison would save Venezuela," he said. "But inside it is chaos. Men are starving, screaming, losing their minds, and we are told to watch, to let it happen." He paused before adding, "Some of those men are not criminals. Some are students, activists, protesters, and we are told to treat them all the same." His confession ignited a firestorm. Families who had long insisted their loved ones were innocent clung to his words as validation. Videos flooded social media of mothers holding up photos, screaming, "They are not terrorists, they are our sons." One woman fainted mid-sentence, collapsing into the arms of fellow protesters. The clip went viral, fans around the world saying it was the rawest display of grief yet in the entire saga. Meanwhile, rumors about the prison's secret wing reached a fever pitch. Some claimed it was built underground, a place where prisoners were stripped of light and sound, left in silence so deep it drove them insane. Others swore it was a lab for experimentation, where fear itself was tested as a weapon. Nothing could be confirmed, but the speculation was so powerful that people began treating it as truth. International media couldn't resist. One headline screamed, "Inside the walls of hell," while another declared, "Venezuela's fortress prison, where silence is louder than screams." Glossy documentaries, dramatic podcasts, even late-night comedians jumped on the story. It was no longer just politics or crime. It was entertainment, tragedy, and horror wrapped together. Back in Venezuela, the government fought harder to control the narrative. Officials paraded in front of cameras, pointing to charts and statistics, claiming crime rates had plummeted since the prison opened. "This is victory," one minister boasted. "We have crushed chaos." But outside, families stood in the heat, holding signs that read, "Where are they?" The contrast between the official story and the reality on the streets only deepened the divide. The drama reached a breaking point during a massive protest in Caracas. Thousands poured into the streets, chanting against the prison, demanding answers. Families, students, activists, even former guards marched side by side. Chants of freedom and justice echoed off the buildings. Security forces moved in, shields raised, tear gas ready. And then the inevitable clash erupted. Smoke filled the air. People scattered. Screams pierced the chaos. Videos of mothers clutching their children as they ran from the gas spread online. Fans described it as the turning point, the moment the prison scandal stopped being a story and became a movement. In the aftermath, shocking images emerged. A group of protesters claimed they were being detained and sent directly into the fortress itself. Their families wailed outside the gates, insisting they were innocent. Whether true or not, the rumor took hold instantly. People whispered that the prison was now swallowing not only cartel leaders and protesters, but anyone daring to speak out. And then came the betrayal that left the nation reeling. A leaked video showed a high-ranking official laughing with guards inside the prison. In the background, prisoners sat hunched, motionless, while the official joked, "Look how quiet they are now. Not so tough, are they?" The clip outraged even some of the regime's staunchest supporters. Fans online declared, "This is not order. This is humiliation." The backlash was so fierce that officials scrambled to denounce the leak, claiming it was fabricated. But the damage was already done. As the scandal spiraled, whispers of foreign involvement began swirling again. Some said American intelligence agencies were exploiting the chaos, using the prison as a symbol to rally international pressure. Others pointed to Russia and China, claiming they were quietly backing Maduro, helping maintain the fortress as proof of defiance against the West. Whatever the truth, the prison had become more than a building. It was a battlefield for global powers. But the most haunting part remained the human stories. Children crying outside the gates, mothers begging for letters that never arrived, former prisoners describing nights where screams echoed through the walls, only to be drowned out by silence. One ex-inmate, his voice trembling, said, "The silence was the worst part. It eats you alive. You forget your own name." Still, the government stood firm, repeating the same line. The fortress was proof of strength, proof of control, proof of sovereignty. Yet the more they repeated it, the less anyone seemed to believe. As the weeks dragged on, one chilling question began to dominate conversations across the world. Was this prison actually creating more violence than it prevented? Analysts warned that starving and breaking men would only harden them further. "You cannot crush the human spirit without consequences," one expert warned. "When those men come out, they will not be weaker. They will be monsters the system itself created." By now, the saga had grown so huge that every new rumor felt like the next shocking twist in an endless drama. Fans tuned in daily, waiting for the next revelation, the next betrayal, the next tearful confession. Venezuela's fortress prison was no longer just a facility. It was the stage for a story that mixed politics, crime, family, betrayal, and survival. And as one protester outside the gates shouted through tears, "This isn't just a prison. This is Venezuela itself, locked in silence." The words cut deep, leaving the world wondering if the real cage was not the steel walls of the fortress, but the society forced to live in its shadow. So where does that leave us? A fortress of steel and silence, a government claiming victory, and families left shattered outside the gates. To some, the extreme prison is a symbol of strength. Venezuela, finally showing it, can crush the cartels that once ruled its prisons. But to others, it is nothing more than a stage, a theater of power where human suffering is paraded as proof of control. The truth remains tangled in whispers, rumors, and carefully crafted speeches. Are cartel bosses really being caged forever? Or are innocent protesters vanishing into the same darkness? Are guards truly keeping order? Or are they running experiments in fear? The only certainty is that this story has torn Venezuela apart, dividing families, dividing friends, and sparking debates that stretch far beyond its borders. Fans online are still asking the same haunting question. If the silence inside those walls is so complete, what will happen when it finally breaks? Will the world witness peace, or will it unleash something even darker? And now, we turn to you. What do you believe is really happening inside Venezuela's so-called extreme prison? Is it the end of cartel power, or the beginning of something far more dangerous? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because we want to hear every theory, every suspicion, every voice. Make sure you hit that like button if you were shocked by what you heard tonight, and subscribe so you don't miss the next twist in this unfolding drama. And don't forget to share this video with your friends, because whether you see it as justice, cruelty, or propaganda, one thing is clear: this story is far from over, and the world is watching.